Ladies and gentlemen, your hosts, Michael Wilkes, Angel Ortiz, Dr. Chad, and Sam La Cavera. Go check out beardedbrowns.com and be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Enjoy the show.
Oh my gosh, what is up? It has been a crazy whirlwind of a week if you're a Browns fan. You got your coach, you don't have your coach. It's Monken, it's Udinski. It's just been drama filled all week. If you're emotionally invested as I've been this week as a podcaster who's trying to keep track of every single move, then you're exhausted. And that's me right now. I am exhausted. Chad texted earlier, Angel, what do you think of it trending this way? And I said, you know what? I don't care. Just give me the name of the coach already so we can focus on what his team's going to look like in the draft. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about where we're at right now. It's the coaching stall show. It is stalled. It is at a pause. They did all the interviews they needed to do. Now we're just waiting on which one they're going to pick. So thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and follow. Share the feed. Let people know that we are on talking about this coaching chaos in which is happening in Berea. It is, Chad, it's been negative degrees here with the wind chill for the last 3 days. And it's going to finish out the rest of the week at negative degrees with the wind chill.
I didn't know it was that bad. So I did know, obviously, the whole country knows about the storms. I didn't realize they came with that much cold. I thought the headline I've been hearing is just snow, like so much snow.
Yeah, we got a lot of snow. I got about 7 inches of snow, but every day when I wake up at 3 a.m., it is 0 in my van, but it feels like negative 20. I have like layers on until my van warms up. It's crazy, man. And it's gonna go until Monday where it's gonna be like 25 degrees, but school's been closed all week because of it. I think they might open up tomorrow. My kids go to a private school, so they're going to probably try to stay open. But we'll see. We'll see. But
back when I lived there, I considered myself, I still would, compared to where I live, relatively tough when it comes to the weather and getting things done. Like I've gone and run in the cold. I deal with it like anybody else. I went to Ohio U. Oh, hey, go Bobcats. You have to walk the campus in this weather. It's not as snowy or as cold as Cleveland, but it's still Ohio. And like, you've got to walk, sometimes 20, 25 minutes to class in it. And I was the typical dude of like, well, I'm just going to wear a hoodie and kind of like, make my walk. But I will say the last year I lived in Ohio, I bought a car that came with a remote start.
Used it.
If I still lived there, there was no chance I would not have it. Like going to my window and starting the car 10 minutes before I left was like a friggin' dream in the winter.
Yeah, I had the advantage. My work van, they put a starter in, so I'm able to start it from my living room and then wait about 10 minutes to get in.
I definitely forgot a few times. There's definitely times where I'm like, oh, I wish I'd remote started my car. Or you don't know. Those days you wake up, you go take a shower, it's cold in the house a little, whatever, but you got the heat going. And then you like open the front door and you're like, oh, holy cow, it snowed like 6 inches. I didn't even know this was going to happen. I wish I had started my car. But, yeah.
All right. Let us know where you're tuning in from. If you got hit with the cold, with the snow, let us know. I know Texas got some ice. I know Tennessee got some ice. They have some power outage going on down there. Let us know where you're listening from in the comments below. Also, let us know, who do you think is going to come out on top? Do you think it's Monken? Do you think it's Schwartz? Do you think it's Shieldhouse? Or do you think Udinski somehow is going to rise through the ashes and be the surprise guest head coach? Nonetheless, we're going to get into it. The first bit of news that we're going to get into first is good news for us. Good news for Chad and me. Actually, you're a Browns fan, you should be excited about this news. That means the future of the quarterback position is bright for your Cleveland Browns. Since the first time since I can remember Derek Anderson as a quarterback as a Brown, your quarterback, Shador Sanders, has made the Pro Bowl. Let's go. What do you think about Shador Sanders making his first ever Pro Bowl? And it's on his record. He's a Pro Bowler.
Well deserved, I would say. He did everything a Pro Bowler needs to do to get in the big game. He, outshined Dylan Gabriel sometimes. He played more games than Joe Flacco. I'm not sure how much more people could have asked for. It seems pretty clear this guy is the next big thing. I saw his post today, and he's just cute as a guy. He's just like his answer, like, I'm so excited that I get to be involved in this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it is kind of a funny. It's just kind of a funny thing to see. Less for him, but just the Pro Bowl in general. The
Yeah.
fact a lot of people just kind of like shook their head and were like, I guess this is where we're at. Like,
Because they see what we saw as far as the stats, him being last in the lots.
I mean,
And obviously
was
it's
it
the popular vote.
Trey Wingo like put out like a call to the NFL to like change everything about the Pro Bowl because like how do you have a guy who, you know, played less than half the season? Anything that anybody would say in comment to this of like played barely any football, didn't play very well. To start off, like it was on a bad team and like didn't just overall have a ton of success as far as statistical or just like on paper. And, but Trey Wingo was like he's the maddest tweet I've seen where he's just like furious at the NFL in the process at this point. I
Yeah.
don't know, man. I saw Tyler Huntley make a Pro Bowl when he was like playing, I don't know, 5 games filling in for Lamar Jackson, and like they won a couple games, but he had like minimal success. They don't even play a Pro Bowl game, I don't think anymore. I don't watch, so it's like I think all we have to do with this, like, don't take it that seriously. It's almost funny. I would just say it's probably time to start changing the way you keep these on a record to say if you made
Sure.
if you got voted in the Pro Bowl as a first teamer, you make it, and all alternates just they get to participate. They're an alternate, but I would think it would be fine if they
Or
just wouldn't put it on their
or you
permanent
can
record.
just say, "Hey, you made the Pro Bowl. Here's a trophy that you put on your thing," and do like an award ceremony, or just like put out a flyer or a Instagram or a social
Yeah.
media tweet
It's only
saying,
relevant because
"Yeah,
it's on like the Hall of Fame voters go over like how many All Pros did they have? How many Pro Bowls did they make? And I'm
yeah,
like, that stuff's relevant. And Sanders could get good and earn, you know, 5 legitimate Pro Bowls, and that'd be great. But like there will always be like the one that it makes people pause at whether the Pro Bowl nod is anything anymore. And that kind of stinks because I would say a majority of the Pro Bowlers are the best of the best at their position. Uh, so it's just kind of like maybe you just need to like give them the you made the Pro Bowl games, but you didn't make the first cut, so you don't get like a Pro Bowl on your permanent NFL record or something.
Chad, you get mad love in the chat for that hoodie, man." Mike, who's probably rescuing people from the snow that we had. Mike said, "Nice hoodie," and then you got another guy, Rob, said, "Go Bobcats." Look at
Yes.
that. You got some
What I'm talking
Bobcat
about.
fans in the chat,
For those that
dog.
don't know, Ohio Sports Doc comes from I got my doctorate at Ohio U, and that's why that name came about.
Name. You see, now it all
Yeah.
makes sense. See,
Bobcat for life.
Antonio Robinson says they should do away with the Pro Bowl, and I agree. I think they should do away with the Pro Bowl like game and the
I
whatever
think they
the
do. I think they
dodgeball,
do, like,
whatever they
skills
call it.
competitions
Yeah,
and then they do dodgeball, they do, like, passing competitions. I know they do a flag football competition. I think they even play video games against each other. Don't they play Madden or
yeah.
something as part of it? I just think, like, the games, like, you made it into the Pro Bowl games, you get to play because of the alternates or whatever, but it really should be you made the All Pro, and that is a vote by, like, the the AP and there's the football writers, and then the Pro Bowl can be like, this was a fan's vote, but you really do have to be the first. I don't care if they do it. I don't watch. I haven't watched it for
Yeah,
years.
I haven't
It
watched
hasn't
it.
been real football forever. Guys are worth too much money. They're too afraid of getting hurt. They back out for the smallest reasons. And some of the best players that deserve to be there are going to play in the Super Bowl. So it's a silly game. I just think there were a lot of people like, I am always making comments about Shador and how disappointed I was in this year's performance. But there were people that were legitimately pissed. And I think probably take it down
Yeah,
a
take it down.
notch.
And
It's
then,
not
but
that
then
big of a
I
deal.
think they're mad because then you have the aunties and uncles saying,
That's why.
"See, Shador is a Pro Bowler.
He's a Pro Bowler.
He's the greatest. He's
And even though
legendary."
they
It's like, come
know
on.
that's not a legitimate award for him, it was a
Yeah,
vote and you
it's
probably voted him
alternate.
in, they're never gonna admit it. They're gonna use it as another piece of, like, you can't criticize him or be honest because he's a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, Sam Lacavera from the Saturday show, Saturday morning. I mean, Brown's Morning Brew
Yeah,
at 10
he's right.
a.m. You guys want to tune in for that? He says Pro Bowl rookie by default. I wonder how many quarterbacks turned down the Pro Bowl offer. I know one for sure was Trevor Lawrence. He didn't want to go. And I think that's what got him in because Drake May's in the Super
Drake
Bowl.
May can't
So
go,
Drake
right.
May can't go. So that pushed Shador in. As far as voting, that's why he's in. But either way,
Sam also made a great point earlier. He's like, this guy also had his jersey retired in Colorado. So I guess
yeah, that's
he's
a good
full of
point, Sam.
accolades that a ton of people that aren't like on the bandwagon don't think he deserves.
I guess from my perspective, I hope he gets around. And I heard a offensive lineman say this that he got in his first year, and he said he kind of hinted like it was a waste. You know, it is a waste of they should do away. He said, but the benefit of players like that were young at me like me at the time, hearing Peyton Manning talk about
right.
different things offensive linemen should be doing as far as protection and all this stuff. He said he got a wealth of knowledge in 3 days that he's got his whole life in 3 days because he got to hang out with some Peyton Manning. So hopefully Shador Sanders could get around those quarterbacks that are doing well and other people and learn from them.
It's also a chance for other people to connect with him because we've talked about it a ton of times. He seems like a good kid. He seems like a kid that's like nice to be around and that people generally just gravitate to. And the NFL the GMs were very against drafting him. This gets him around other players, other coaches, other people. So whether or not he works out in Cleveland, the view of him might change a little bit to being like to the NFL not being so anti-Shador if they get around him and say like, oh, the GMs maybe didn't like him because of these things, but as players or coaches, we do like him for this reason. So we'll see.
Yeah.
It can't hurt. I just wish it didn't go on the record because it delegitimizes the award for a lot
I'm
of
wondering
people
in
that are
about
the
10
best.
to 15 years, how are they going to count that as like
They will. It'll just be like
that's crazy.
4-time Pro Bowler instead of 3 times plus this.
Yeah, that's going to be weird to see. Not that I mean, I'm hoping Shador makes the Hall of Fame. That means he did great here. I mean, but it would be
again a long talk on Shador, but I do remember when we picked up Tyler Huntley the first time around, like 3 years ago, and people were like, "Yes, we brought a legitimate Pro Bowler in the building," because they didn't know his career or follow him. They just saw the reports that he had been a Pro Bowler, and it does
yeah.
mislead people that aren't closely following to go like,
Oh.
"Oh, the Browns brought in Tyler Huntley. That's a huge signing." Whereas,
Pro
like, I
Bowler.
think that was before our podcast got together, even.
Yeah.
But it was the talk from all Browns fans that really followed were like, well, that's not a Pro Bowl, man. The guy's barely ever played.
Yep. Opening news brought to you by Cleveland Ketchup. Go to clevelandketchup.com and use the code Bearder for 10% off. Go there, man. They got amazing sauces, mayos, ketchup, mustards, and chips, man. It's really good stuff. We're going to get into coaching search update. Who is left as far as what teams need a coach, right? Like who's left? Arizona, Vegas.
The one job I thought was worse than us was Arizona.
Vegas.
Vegas, I think, is pretty similar, except for we've got, I think, a better overall team. They've got some really notable young stars in the first pick. So not surprising that they're with us here.
and us. So the top 3 teams that were worse this year still need coaches. The worst teams in the league this year are still looking for coaches. Cameron Thomas says, "Give me Shieldhouse head coach Dave Ragon, OC, current Rams quarterback coach. Schwartz is defense assistant defense coach, assistant coach. Don't know why they're taking forever. Jim is not going to leave. I'm 95% positive he loves coaching the Browns defense."
I'm sure he does. The talent on the Browns defense is awesome, and they can do exactly what they've spent years now drafting for his scheme. Like, they can do what he wants. And we talked about it last week. It's a one-on-one scheme. Like, it's a lot of you beat the man in front of you one-on-one, and they have the talent to do that.
Yeah, we're gonna dive a little more into Jim here, Schwartz, in a second. So stay tuned. Just to let you know what's on the docket today. We're gonna talk about who's left, the recap of what Barry said that he wants in the coach. What is a CEO? What does that even mean? Essay and homework.
Mhm.
Like, why are these people like? What does that mean? Why was it given into these candidates? Is Haslam meddling? Is keeping Jim worth it? And will Jim call defensive plays? So stay tuned for all that fun stuff. So we're gonna get into that. So it's just the three worst teams left. So there's a lot of heat that the Browns are taking because of what they did. We're gonna get into that a little bit, but they may end up with who they pinned down, which is Shieldhouse. We're still waiting for that to break. Or it could be Schwartz. It's one of those two. Two guys they probably wanted, at least from what we see. They probably targeted other people, but they either turned it down or didn't answer a phone call, depending on who you are.
Mhm.
Those 3 teams. I mean, out of those 3 teams, who's the best? Who's the most appealing to you?
I mean, it's like I said, it's for me, I just think Arizona is the one team that just doesn't have anything that appeals to me. The only what they have going for them is they're in Phoenix, and a lot of people are interested in living in Phoenix. I, for one, have been to Phoenix a lot of times. I have a great time there. I don't want to live in Phoenix. It's just not my personality. It's the desert's not my place. But I can see, like, if you remember the clips of Cliff Kingsbury in his Phoenix home off like Camelback Mountain with like the open windows to like the desert like backdrop and mountains and the cactuses and it just you and the pool in the back, like, you can see a young coach being like, "Oh yeah, I don't mind living that life right now," right? Just like players, they like going there. The weather's nice. It's an easy place to train. You're not dealing with snow. I get it. Other than that, the team itself, I'm not interested in Kyler Murray. I'm not
Nope.
interested in their defense. I'm not interested in their offense. And yes, they do have a couple good players. Every NFL team does. I think the stars that I like, I think Gentry's really great at running back, although I wouldn't take a job for that. Brock Bowers is a super stud. Mostly that comes down to, and they've got a couple defensive players too, Crosby. Mostly it comes down to you're going to get the first pick and you're taking Mendoza. You are starting fresh with a rookie quarterback and you're thinking, okay, nobody's even going to judge me for like 2 or 3 years now because I'm building a program from the start. To me, that makes that place more appealing than Cleveland, who I would say has more talent and is a little bit closer to contending. But I think people like, as a young head coach, you'd be like, I'd rather be here because I've got 3 years. I go to Cleveland, looks like the place that if things don't go well, in a
Yeah.
year you could get fired and they could go in another direction.
That's always a concern. Like, as a fan, you have to always have that in the back of your mind. Like, hey, this is you have all the pluses. Your defense is set up. You just come in, focus on the offense, get a couple receivers. They're going to focus on flipping the talent on the offensive side. But if you don't do it quick enough, you can get fired. As opposed to Raiders, they got Mendoza. They're going to have this young talent, influx of talent, and I think they're going to be more patient because they have, Tom
Mhm.
Brady could have some say in that. But we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. I agree with you. I think I would like the Raiders, us, and obviously the Cardinals who
Yeah.
wants to go there. I
And
think They're
It
gonna be the
really comes
last
down to
people.
Mendoza. If you happen to be a Clint Kubiak, just an example, a guy you were really high on, a guy the NFL was really high on as a prospect, a guy who hasn't really been in the mix because he's still working, and you look at that, if by chance you've seen some Mendoza film and you're like, "I don't really like him," then the Raiders have the job stinks.
Yep,
If Mendoza's not your guy, that job stinks. If he is your guy, though,
you're
much like
good.
back when it's not the same prospect, but like if you were looking at the Jaguars job and Trevor Lawrence was coming out, you'd be like, "Well, I can start fresh with that guy. That's a great job." So
Yeah. Yeah, KP, yeah, Mike must have answered you. Um, yeah, my McDermott is look likely to take a year off. That's why. Also, too, I don't think McDermott. Maybe they would have called him. I don't want to say they wouldn't, but by what the list shows me, they were looking for somebody that was non-established. But that's just my
yeah,
perception of it.
which I think is weird, but it does look that way, doesn't it? It
Yeah,
was like if we're taking anybody established, like if we're taking a past head coach or somebody established, it kind of felt like we'll just stay with Jim. Like
yeah, that's
it's
what I
tough.
get.
It did look like they wanted to re-interview McDaniel before he backed out, so maybe, like, if he's really young, then they would have said, like, "Okay, we'll take a retread," if he's, like, still 30 something,
Yeah.
40, but
Um, Ricardo asks about Brian Flores. The reason why Brian Flores doesn't have a job yet in general is look up what Ryan Fitzpatrick said about him, and then look up what Mike Pettit said about him, and then you'll understand why teams put in personality tests.
mhm.
We're gonna get into
And
that a
to
little
add
bit
to
later.
that, remember, he just finished an active lawsuit against the NFL, which
That too.
stemmed from suing the team that fired him. And I don't know if you know this. If you're the Patriots, maybe that doesn't bother you. If you're the Browns and you know this guy will look at front office shenanigans or ownership stuff and sue you and
And challenge you.
air your dirty laundry, you probably, because I liked Flores, but I was like, I can't imagine Haslam's going to be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm okay with that rat being in the building. Like, no way.
Yep. Uh,
No way.
so let's recap exactly what Barry said that they're looking for in a head coach, and then maybe lay out what the CEO as a head coach means. I think Chad, I think you've said it before, and I didn't realize what you were saying until actually we were
Yeah.
logging on and we talked about it today.
And I
Um,
don't know if I don't know if I typically use the term CEO, but this is how I've described like
yeah.
teams looking at a head coach for
So
sure.
Barry said, when asked about the coach, he said it's more you're looking for maybe a specific skill set given where we are in our building. He said, I think that that's fair. I don't think that we will call it singular. I don't think that means it's just a young person. I don't think that means it's an offensive coach. I mentioned earlier the head coaching position is so different than being a coordinator, and a head coach's responsibilities to make sure that the offense runs and develops well as opposed to necessarily having to be the person that directly does it. Um, so and
I
indirectly, Barry, to me, when I'm reading, is Barry's describing a CEO, coach, someone who can oversee the entire operation, manage people, build systems, and keep all three phases aligned rather than someone who's glued to a play sheet, is what I wrote down.
Yeah, and it made me wonder if like, and we've talked about this before. A lot of times when the when a team has one thing and they let him go, they kind of look towards another direction. And whether it's like, oh, we had like a really older veteran coach, so we're gonna look at this really young up and coming guy, like similar to the Harbaugh. They let Harbaugh go. They went and grabbed a first time head coach because they just had an 18-year head coach. Or when they say like, oh, we fired a defensive coach, so now they're really interested in going towards an offensive coach. This one feels a lot like they had a coach that was very hands-on. For several years, he called plays. He was very involved in the
Mhm.
game planning. This last year, we highlighted over and over that Mary Kay and several others specifically talked about how much he was having private sessions working with Shador. He was just involved a lot with like more than typical, I would say, with the play calling, the design, and the players, and young players and development, and that's not the most common way that the NFL does it. And I'm not surprised they looked at that and said, maybe we should have somebody who's and we all questioned one of the biggest questions we had, even me, who was a pretty big Stefanski fan. One of my biggest questions was he hires and he keeps guys around that I don't think are doing a great job. I didn't think Chad O'Shea did a great job with the receivers.
Yeah, he
I
did not,
didn't
and
think
that's not talked about enough. By the way,
The veterans came in and did fine. Our rookie receivers
rookies were not
sucked.
developed, and that's
Our
something
special
that's
teams
not
coach
talked about
sucked.
enough. That Chad O'Shea stayed through different regimes.
Yep.
He did. He didn't just. It wasn't just Kevin inherited him.
And you never know. It's tough in Cleveland compared to other places. Who likes who? Like, is he the reason that Bubba Ventrone is still here? To me, if he wasn't, that's a shame. The head coach should be and should hold him accountable. And
Yeah.
after how bad he was 2 years ago, we all said on the show after the 2024 season, the first firing is
Bubba.
Dorsey. The second
Oh, yeah,
firing is
yeah.
Ventrone. They fired Dorsey and they decided to give Ventrone another job. But I don't want to go off on a huge tangent. But the point is, it didn't seem to me like the one thing I wished he did more was like this line coach isn't working. This running backs coach isn't working. You got to make a change or take control. At one point, they had Vrabel coaching the offensive line because the coach he hired allegedly didn't get it done. So if it's to me looking at that, I go, I need a coach who can hire better coaches. So he doesn't have to be in there designing the play or calling the plays. You know who he should have hired after they let I think we all underappreciated the first OC he had in. What was his name?
Van Pelt.
Yeah. Yeah. I always want to say Scott Van Pelt.
Yeah.
Alex Van Pelt. Alex Van Pelt, when they let him go,
Yeah.
he should have never brought in a OC or agreed to one that he didn't trust and who couldn't call plays right off the bat. And he did. Then the next year, he brought in Tommy Reese, who was a really good young offensive mind. If you didn't trust him to call plays, you shouldn't have hired him. You should hire a guy who can get the job done you need done. And that is a third of the OC job, maybe is calling the plays. So it's like now I think they're making this point. We need to bring in a coach who can hire and manage his coaches better.
He said, and the key thing here, and I also would say, a lot of people say, well, can this guy call plays? Can this guy call plays? And I think, and I always go to this statement. He said the head coach responsibility is to make sure that the offense is run and developed well, as opposed to necessarily having to be the person that directly does it. That means that he is saying it may be somebody that doesn't call plays, but make sure the person that's calling plays is doing it correctly.
Yes. And by the way, I do not have a problem with a head coach that calls plays. I had a problem with it his first year.
Yeah.
I said he shouldn't have hired Alex Van Pelt as a rookie, as a first-time head coach of the Browns back in 2020. Yeah, we had a great season. He should have never hired an OC that couldn't have done that year. And that way, if it went bad, he could have taken it over instead of starting with him and just never moving on. Alex Van Pelt never called plays for us. He left. Our offense took a huge dive, and we don't even know if the guy can call play. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't mind if the head coach can do it. You may have to one day if somebody leaves or something like that. But I don't want you to put yourself in a position where you have to do it. And he had to do it a lot. And that
there was a game that Van Pelt did call. That was a playoff game, and they won.
Yep.
They won by a lot of points.
I don't think their offense was great. I think they scored like 3 defensive touchdowns.
But they won.
If he could have done it in the playoffs, you should have let him do it. Guess what? He got the playoffs. It was his first time. Why was he calling it sometime during the season so he could have been even more ready? I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird because now Kevin in his press conference, I heard the whole thing today in Atlanta, said right away Tommy's calling plays. So he's giving it to Tommy right away, right off the bat.
Because he finally hired somebody that he knew trusted. I wouldn't have been sad if he hired Tommy Reese right after Van Pelt, and then he didn't call plays right away because Tommy was so young. But he should have gotten Tommy on board by like mid-season and let him kind of go. And that way you can do what he did this year. I think if he would have stayed, Tommy would have called plays. But you can't wait until you're 6 years a head coach to get that worked out.
Yeah, Don Flowers did bring up a good point. Having Tommy Reese did cost him. Last year it did cost him Clint Kubiak. And you see what Clint Kubiak's
darn
doing.
Good. Yeah,
and by the way,
if Clint Kubiak was in the building right now,
he would be a head coach.
He'd probably be our head coach.
Yeah, he'll be a head coach.
I know I've gotten a lot of grief on it because I've called out a lot of times that Clint Kubiak went and interviewed the first 6 of 7 places, but not with us. And I've gotten a lot of pushback. Well, like maybe they didn't want him. I'm like, he's the hottest name at the time. They wanted him. If he didn't come here, it's because either they knew he said no or they reached out to him and he said no. They didn't just go, we're not interested in this young, smart protege of a bunch of great coaches who, by the way, has an entire family line of coaching history. If they weren't interested, then they're idiots.
Do you think it's because they
on.
feel like he's too similar to Kevin? And I actually think they want to open up the offense. I don't think they just want 2 tight ends. I think they want to be able to
Maybe,
be
but
versatile.
like you said, they want this guy to be like a CEO. And I think Clint could hire a young guy that could come in and do unique stuff.
Yeah. On to the next thing. Speaking of people hanging up on us when they call, maybe it's because they caught wind that they're going to have to do an essay, homework, a background check, fingerprints, give their first blood, and maybe give up their first son just to interview the first time, according to reports that came out, that the Browns required a little extra work from the candidates, which included some essays and some homeworks. And a lot of people, I don't know what your stance is now here in a second. A lot of people blew this up. A lot of people was like, this is why they can't. And the whole time I'm thinking, well, we don't know what's on those essays. We don't know what type of homework. Like, they could be saying, what type of guy would you pick as your DC? What type of personality do you like as your offense? What type of scheme would you run with this quarterback or that quarterback? I mean, that's the homework I envision. And the essay could be, what is your philosophy on being fourth, you're 4th and 2 and your quarterback's taking you downfield? What would you do then? I mean, so it's like plays or schemes or situational play calling.
Yeah,
like,
it could be an easy quiz. It could be just
it can be nothing.
I don't know.
Personality test to me,
hard. It's
to
hard
me, a
without knowing what it
personality
is.
test, I'm okay with that, because I think a personality test can expose people for who they are. Now, I'm big on it. My wife's a therapist. She's big on it. So I understand the personality test. Again, personality test, from what I understand, from what I read, the reason why they started that was because of Freddie Kitchens and Hugh Jackson. They went with the popular hire, and they didn't get to know the individual, and that brought in.
Here's what bothers me about that. I get so that makes more sense why they're doing it. Here's what bothers me about it. They are basically implementing a testing system to make up for, so they don't make a mistake on hiring like they did in the past. So they're making these candidates do personality tests because of their past failures to identify the things that other people had identified. Like Freddie
They
Kitchens
should take
wasn't
their own
getting hired.
test. Take your own test,
That's what I'm
man.
saying. Like, it's just almost like, hey, I'm making you jump through hoops because of all of the mistakes I've made in the past. Like, you meet a girl out at the grocery store. She's cute. She seems nice. You ask her out on a date, and the first day you're just quizzing her and asking her all these personal questions. And you're like, well, here's the thing. I've made a lot of dumb choices about girls in the past. So now you have to suffer and get all these extra like miserable questions because I can't seem to get her right.
I'm blaming you for my failures, okay?
Basically.
So,
but I will agree with you. We don't know the test, and they may not be that big of a deal. It does bother me, and it's bothered me this whole coaching search. The Browns are not looked at highly around NFL circles. Haslam is not looked at highly around NFL circles. Barry probably has some mixed responses. People are very excited about his draft. And I would say players in their representation love how much he gets them paid, and he'll deal them if they need to move on. He'll move them to other situations. So he's probably mixed, but Haslam, bad rep. The Browns organization in general, bad rep. They've given the world in this coaching search so many more reasons to criticize and make fun of them. And I think their reputation is already hurting this search. And then the search is making their reputation worse.
Yeah. So you like Breer. You trust Breer, right? Albert Breer.
Usually, yeah. He's
so what he had
he's
to
not
say
always
about,
right, but he's pretty plugged in.
So what he said is, there's 3 phases to this he kind of downplayed it. And if you would watch the video of the guy that originally said it to Rich Eisen, you can tell when he was talking that Rich Eisen was making it bigger than what it is. And the only reason why he said, and a lot of people blew up, is because the guy said, well, you can see why they're having a problem getting candidates. And all of a sudden people blew it up because he said that.
Right.
But
Right.
Breer
And
said,
honestly, though, I do agree to an extent. Like, there are probably people that are turned off by that. If they are interviewing for 4 jobs and the only one that's doing that's the Browns, they might be like, "What is all this shenanigans?" And maybe it's not a big deal. What bothers me most about it is that it got out, and like it's just another reason for the Browns'
Browns
reputation
to
to look
get to
bad.
be crapped on. Yeah, Breer said that it's a conjugative test, a personality test. Then this part of the year, that's the personality test is what they just added. Then this part, they added this part next year. There's a half a dozen. This is what they added this year. A half dozen questions relating to the role of a head coach. Some general ones about the candidate himself, and some specific ones to the Browns. The questions require
Okay.
more than just off the cut thought, and so the foundation of it's all within the foundation of the first interview. So they give them questions in the first interview, and if they're interested, they tell them come back with the answers.
Okay.
So
If
they're
we're gonna interview a
saying,
second
they're
time,
asking,
you
yeah,
better
they're
have
asking,
this completed.
yeah, basically, if they're interested in you, they say, well, here's a list of questions. We want you to come back with the answers for their second interview.
Yeah.
So to me, that makes sense because you want to know more about the person. It's specifically about you, that person.
Okay. The
Because
only person I would think that this would be a turnoff for, there's only really one
Mike
candidate I think
McDaniels.
Mike McDaniels, the only person
Which
I
is
would say
probably
be
how
like,
they got the report because Mike McDaniels said, yeah, the reason why I didn't go
it's
there is
like,
because
yeah, I'm
they
not
had me
going
do
there. They're
some
making
stupid
you do weird
testing.
stuff. Yeah, because remember, he was here the first time when the Browns were doing weird stuff, and he was part of him and Shanahan were the ones that called them out, quit, and gave that huge presentation on like, here's all the weird stuff you guys do that you shouldn't be doing. And then I could see him being the one guy who was
Yeah.
definitely going to come back here for a second interview, but was like,
Same.
you know what?
Yeah, I'm
I'm
a
not doing
Yale.
this
I'm
stuff.
from Yale, dog. Why you quizzing me? I'm a
Yeah,
Yale
it's like,
grad.
I'm not applying to grad school here, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I'm fine. And also, I already worked in this building and you're giving me personality tests. You already know me. I've already
Yeah.
worked for you. Like, I'm not doing
Yeah.
this.
Don Flowers agrees with me. He says he's very much referring to Mike McDaniels in his opinion. Tom Pierce.
I do think
Yeah.
that is
I'm
the one.
100%.
And
When
the
I
reason
read
I
that,
say
that's the
that,
first person I thought of. I'm like,
it's
Mike
not going to cost you a
McDaniels.
Harbaugh because a Harbaugh is never walking in this door.
Yeah.
I said before, Kubiak, I don't think is interested in coming here right now. Some people don't believe me. I just don't believe that they're not interested at all. I think that there were certain coaches that were never going to come here, and they don't care about this that much because they're more worried about the owner or the quarterback or whatever. They're not worried about this quiz.
Yeah.
I think the young candidates are probably like, I don't know, I've never been through this process, and
I guess it's normal.
this is what you do. You do, yeah, whatever.
I want
And
to
then
expose this one. Thorell from My Dog's podcast. He said everyone doesn't do well on tests. R. Kelly would fail the test, but still could put out hits. Now, I think when people hear tests, they think of like 36 divided by 3. Like this is not that type of test where you're going to fail or pass. This is a test about, hey, we want to know your personality. Like,
yeah. Have
green
you ever
and
taken a
blue.
personality test?
I've taken many of them. That's why I'm confused why people are thrown off by personality because I don't feel
I've had to take them before.
I don't feel like you can fail a personality test. Now, if it's required for a job, you can fail it because they
Yeah, and
probably looking for a specific person.
Yeah, they're looking for red flags, or they might be looking for like you don't fit the type of person we're trying to get in this mix. But
yeah,
okay,
that's my take. I think it was overblown. I think
Probably.
people, and understandably so because of who you're dealing with, like you
Right.
said.
If
Like you
this was
said.
a personality test and it was administered by the Denver Broncos, no one would have, even if it got reported, no one would have
Oh, they're
questioned it.
so innovative
Yes,
over there in
but
Denver.
because it's the Browns, it's a problem because the Browns already have this reputation of they're over analyzing everything. They need to be smarter than everybody. So it bothers me that they're doing it only to the degree of it's just one more thing to rag on the
Yeah.
Browns for.
Yeah.
And
Which leads us to our next topic. Speaking of essays and homework, meddling. Do you think Mr. Haslam is meddling with this coaching search? I feel like he is wanting it to be directed to one individual, and he's making it hard for Andrew Berry to do his job. But I could be wrong. What do
So,
you say?
what was the report? You had that report from
Oh, I got it. Hold on, let me pull it up. Keep talking.
yeah, I think that's pretty important to look at. I think it almost answers the question for you. My answer is automatically yes. I specifically said in a clip I posted today on X from our show maybe 3 weeks ago how my biggest worry about having a young coach is our owner can't just let him grow in the position and do his job. He's always got to step in and get in the way. And that bothers me when it
Yeah.
comes to like a coach without any clout to say, I've done this before. I know how this is done. You're overstepping whatever. But this report, I
Yeah.
think,
So the
is telling.
report from Jared Mueller, he said, from what I'm hearing, Jimmy Haslam is pretty hell bent on keeping Jim Schwartz as DC. While that keeping that keeping Schwartz may not be an overall issue, that's forcing nature of is a concern for many other candidates. Grant Udisky, for example, had a different defensive coordinator in mind. Showhouse as another option, maybe not as strong as Udinski on the matter. It also it's also possible, but less likely, that Jimmy would keep Bubba Bidtrone. And this what blew people up. Bubba, you can't get like nothing else. But as soon as they say keep
That's what
Bubba,
gave me pause. This is
yeah,
the report where I was like, when I was saying like Stefanski needs to hire and fire the right coaches. My question all along is like, well, you want a coach to do that, but also is the owner? None of us think he wanted to hire Dorsey or fire Alex Van Pelt. So we're like, yeah, you're saying you want your coach to be a CEO and hire and fire the right people and manage them, but also you can't force him to do that.
do
Then
that. Yeah.
you have to let him pick his guys
Uh,
and work with them.
keep Bubba Bidtrone as coach that he pushed to
Baffling.
join the team a few years ago. Haslam tipped his hand. He did. He tipped
Mhm.
his hand in his press conference after firing Stefanski when he asked, "Do you want Jim Schwartz to remain with the organization?" The owner stated, "Absolutely. He is a great coach."
And I want to pause you here because to back that up, one of the biggest names in all Cleveland sports media, Angel Ortiz, has a very famous clip with our own Sam Lacavera saying when Sam said, I don't care they hire as a head coach, something like, I really just want to make sure they keep Jim Schwartz. And you pointed out, here's the problem. If you are going to force candidates to keep Jim Schwartz, as much as we all like him, you are going to cut at least some valuable candidates because they may not know or want to work with Jim Schwartz, or they may just not want to walk into a situation where they're immediately forced to pair with somebody where it's not like, hey, can you please interview Jim Schwartz for so like what they did in Atlanta, where they brought in Kevin. They said, we really think our defensive coordinator did really great stuff. We know you don't know him that well. Can you interview him first and can you give him high consideration? Here's all the reasons we think he's really good and you should look at him. And
Mhm.
then Kevin kept him. It doesn't sound like that's the Browns thing. It sounds like the Browns are more like, if you have this job, Jim Schwartz is your DC. And even if they like him, there are going to be people with how like high-headed coaches are that don't like that got forced on them
Yeah.
rather than like collaborated. They're going to be like, wait, so you're already
You already have
dictating
my you
who I
got
have to work with?
yeah. And that's that I think for me, that's more of a concern than the personality test and the homework.
Yeah.
Because the personality test and the homework just surrounding the individual, that's something they can control. They can choose to do it or not do it. Like Mike McDaniels, they can say, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna go San Diego and be an OC for a year. But you have candidates who like Udinsky probably, like I said in that reel that we clipped, there's people that have been in this their whole life. They built
Yeah.
relationships. They
And I'll
built
say I was wrong
bonds.
about that. I said I think that maybe Udinsky and Shieldhouse haven't been around the NFL long enough to really have a strong opinion on it. Maybe they would actually go in and be like, "Yeah, I'd be interested in interviewing Jim Schwartz to keep him." But that's very different because we see the success he's had. I'd like to meet him though and see how I work with him. That's very different than, yeah, if you get hired, you are with Jim Schwartz because
Yep.
you are with these people in the building every day, every night. They're the most important people in your circle, and you are stuck with them on the road through thick and thin all the time. And we've all met people that are probably good at their jobs who we just don't get along with that well. And if you walked in a room and like you didn't get along with this guy and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to work with this guy for the next 1 to 4 years," and like we don't like each other at all, I, you know, maybe it works. Maybe you're like, "Oh, I appreciate the veteran," but like again, it's very different if it works out versus like it got forced on you. And
Yeah.
it's a bummer to me that they wouldn't just say, "We're recommending Jim Schwartz. We would like you to interview Jim Schwartz. We are strongly encouraging you to have Jim Schwartz." Even to the point of if you decide to move on from Jim Schwartz and you bring in a DC and it struggles, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you're
You
gonna
could
get
put
fired.
it on him. Yeah, you can put it
Yeah.
on him where it's like, if you make this decision to move on from Jim without giving him at least 1 year with you and it doesn't work, you are in deep shit because
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
No,
More
I
so
mean,
than
it
like,
is.
no matter
It
what, you
is.
have him. And
Because
maybe
people have been
Udinski was like,
fired
"I know
because
a
of
guy that's
decisions
as
they make.
smart." Udinski might say, Shieldhouse might say, "I know a guy who's as smart at defense, who I've been working with for the last year as I am in offense, and he wows me." And, like, he could make any defensive players somehow successful, and then he brings them in and it works, then you win. But it's like, y I was surprised that both those guys would have a very strong candidate because 'cause they've been around so little, especially, Shieldhouse, but if they do, it's a bummer that if they end up not being in the job and the report comes out that that was the reason, that's just such a bummer because Jim Schwartz is great. We all think he's a good DC. You've had more questions on him than anybody, and I agree with you. He's not perfect as a DC. There are road issues and there are some failures for teams that have a
Yeah.
really good quarterback, a really smart quarterback that make it so I would not build a team around him, which is sort of what they're doing.
Yeah, Cameron Thomas asks, when do you think they're gonna announce the head coach tomorrow? Mary Kay just posted the Browns did more work on their 3 candidates because you need to continue to do more work on the 3 candidates you've been interviewing for 2 weeks. Um, they're still going through some things. The 3 are Jim Schwartz, obviously, Todd Monken, and Nate Shieldhouse. We
Okay.
could possibly still hear something tonight. So that's your update. Brought to you by Bearded Bastards Barbecue Sauce. Go to Bearded Bastard Barbecue Sauce right now. Save 15% on your barbecue sauce or your coffee, and let them know that we sent you by using our code. It's a win-win. Either way, it's a win-win. And I also saw something in the feed because we're about to jump into the Jim Schwartz topic here.
Mhm.
The idea, KP Young, great guy. He follows me on Facebook. The idea of keeping Schwartz, not just because he follows me on Facebook, but he's just a good guy. He interacts a lot. The idea of keeping Schwartz is not a bad thing for the defense. The defense has a top 10 since he's taken over every year. Why ruin something that is positive for a questionable replacement? And I think I'm going to piggyback off that. I think that is a fear of Jimmy, like you
It's a
stated.
fear of a
Also,
lot of
a lot of
Browns
people,
fans
yeah,
too.
yeah. Also, I would
He's not
say
alone.
Jim Schwartz has the defensive locker room. You had Ward that came out was outspoken, and Miles was outspoken about him, saying how great he was for their game. So that can also be why. Like I'm not saying Jimmy is wrong for wanting to hold on to Jim Schwartz. I'm not saying he's wrong because I'm a very reasonable guy. So when someone comes and when I have an idea and I think they should get rid of Schwartz, but someone comes with me and say, "Well, Miles and Ward are really advocating for him," I can reason with that and say, "Well, I can see why." Because they had career years
He's their
underneath Jim
guy. Yeah,
Schwartz.
he's
Yeah.
their guy. The
Yeah.
problem is Denzel Ward could be off this team in 2 years, and your head coach shouldn't be. Myles Garrett's got a couple years left, and the chance of him signing another
Okay.
contract here feels slim. I just think
Cargo. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just think also, like, somebody, posted earlier today, and I wish I could give him credit and remember who it was, said, "You do not make a decision on the primary position in your coaching staff based on secondary positions, and that's where I agree. Jim Schwartz is a defensive coordinator who's 60 years old. You are trying to pick your next head coach for the next 15 years if you're lucky. You're looking for a Harbaugh. You're looking for a McVay. You're looking for a Tomlin. You're looking for like the guy who will grow in this position for so long. I think the reason so many Browns fans are okay with Jim Schwartz is because they don't see longevity in whatever coach we hire anyway. It's got to
Yeah.
be because if you think you're hiring Udinsky or Shielhaus and they're as smart as everybody says and they're 35, by the time they're 50, Jim Schwartz is 75 and not a part of football. And so you're thinking like, if you're thinking you have to hire this guy based on Jim Schwartz, then you're not seeing the 10, 15-year plan in hiring a coach
Yep.
if you get it right.
That's
It's
also
like
my
saying you
argument.
have to draft a quarterback that gets along with your 30-year-old receiver. You don't.
No.
You never should do
It's
that.
at 30 years, it's going to be out in 2
Because
years.
the quarterback's more important and he's going to be here longer and the other guy's at the end of his career.
Yeah.
So if you think about it that way, guys, like, yes, I understand how important Schwartz is, but if he's that good, maybe the guy you hire keeps him anyway, and that's just different than forcing it
Yeah.
on him.
Ricardo, a good pastor friend of mine, said Stefanski kept the defensive coordinator in Atlanta. What's wrong with these young coaches wanting their own defensive guy? Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. And also, Kevin was asked, do you want to keep, forgot the guy's name, and he said, sure. So for those that really rain down on Kevin, Kevin's an easy guy. He's reasonable.
He's
He
easy to work with.
says, yeah, he's easy to work with. So that was a perk and why he got ran over a lot and got blamed on for a lot here when the organization made a decision. He just said, sure, sure. So he's an easy to get along with guy. But we're
Yeah,
going to get
that's
into the
a different thing.
question. Do you think Jim Schwartz is worth keeping? The fact that you can't answer that right away tells me that you're on the
Look.
same path that I am. Go
Look,
ahead.
I do think, well, it is, the answer is yes. I do think he's worth keeping. Here's my issue. I guess I just think these defensive players, I think I said it to you earlier on the show. I had somebody message me today and or this week, and their comment was, how do you get rid of Jim Schwartz when you turn Miles into what he is? Miles was the first pick in the draft, guys. Miles was who he is the day he came to Cleveland. He was the first pick in the draft. He has been a stud since the second he stepped on the field. Yes, he had his best year this year. He's also in his prime.
Prime.
Having a late prime, but he's also in his prime. And I guess Denzel Ward was incredible. He's actually was better before Jim Schwartz was here. This is not his best years. I think he used to be better. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was an amazing player. We all think Schlesinger was a great player. These guys, Jim Schwartz and his coaches, got them in position to have their best success. But this team has so much talent. The fact that Browns fans are scared that if Jim Schwartz walks out the door, all of a sudden Miles can't rush the passer anymore, or Denzel one-on-one can't cover anymore, or Carson all of a sudden gets bad. The kid was incredible out of the gate, guys. Like, there is so much talent on this defense, and I do think Schwartz maximizes him, and a lot of guys were picked to fit his system. If you hire another good DC, they will continue to be good. Every DC is not going to get out of them what Schwartz got out of them, but we have to stop thinking that if it's not Schwartz, then they're going to be terrible. There are a ton of good DCs that can do that. You think Minter can't walk into this room? The people are like, Minter's a 3-4 guy. First of all,
He was hybrid.
Minter is, from everything I've read, Minter is brilliant.
Yep.
Jourday is brilliant. These
Mhm.
guys aren't 3-4 guys. They prefer
hard,
that
yeah.
scheme. We always talk about a good coach can adjust. If they're that smart, they'll just change their scheme.
Yeah, and
Like,
for the
Kevin
record,
was a 12
yeah.
personnel guy. Last year he played a lot of 11. You just do it
For the
differently.
record, the Browns also looked at those defensive guys. If you look into them, they call them hybrids. They can do any type of 3-4-4-3. They can do any type of defense and run any defense. That was a popular choice.
Yeah.
That's the popular thing going on. That's why when we said 2 weeks ago, when I said the new thing in the NFL is guys that not calling plays, obviously, and the new thing is a CEO implementing one thing that's good about Shieldhouse is the fact that he's versatile to where he adjusts to the people that the team he's playing. Like Kevin, one thing about Kevin is he needed 2 tight ends and he needed a good running back and a good offensive line.
Yeah, we struggled when we went out of what he was most
Yeah,
comfortable
when
with.
we out. So
But when
the
he
hope with
did go with what he was
Shieldhouse,
most comfortable with,
it was
he was
good,
his best.
which is
Yeah.
why Atlanta is very dangerous because they have a good offensive line.
I would
DJ
actually
Robinson, and they have Kyle Pitts.
I would actually argue Schwartz doesn't seem to be able to adjust to different
We're gonna
defenses
get
and
into
different
that.
situations.
We're
Okay.
gonna get into
You've
that.
got something for that. I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
so
if
guys,
you're talking
I
about
understand that you guys love Jim Schwartz. I understand why you want to keep him. Matter of fact, I would love to keep him as a defensive coordinator because I just love to keep the consistency on that field. But the
also,
reason
if
why,
we pick somebody young or even I know Munkin is really connected, he knows a lot of people. They probably get along. They're like they have a
yeah.
lot of similarities to me, and they have worked together before, I think. But the but if we got a young guy, the most thing I wanted about Schwartz was the fact that it takes them dealing with the defensive staff off their plate.
So there's always a bad thing about it's called wide 9. That's the defense he runs. The wide 9 is vulnerable to the run because you have gaps. And the reason why he was so good this year is not because of his coaching, it's because the ability of Andrew Berry to find great players to put in holes in which they were weak with last year.
Mhm.
Collins, Mason Graham, that helped the
Schlesinger.
run. You notice when Collins
had-
went off, they're up the gap, up the middle runs were a lot more. Okay.
Bush
So let
and
me
Schlesinger too, though, are
yeah,
great
Schlesinger too.
run
Yeah,
defending
100%.
linebackers.
Yep. So it's
JOK
not just
maybe not
Schwartz.
the
I'm just
same.
saying it's not just Schwartz that should get credit. Is
Mhm.
Andrew Berry drafting talent and them getting the linebacker guy, coach Jacquees, and then Tarver getting the best out of that talent. Okay. So the defense is a wide 9. They're vulnerable to the run. And the reason why I'm saying this because I'm going to bring up some stats. A lot of people forgot 2023. 2023 is 3 years ago. They're ranked 10th in defense. Okay. Average passing per play was 103 yards. At home was 89. 89 yards passing per play at home. That's pretty good, right? But on the road, 118. It's a problem. That's a 30-yard difference there. Okay. Not much, but you would say 30 yards could be a touchdown.
Is that the
30
worst
yards.
of it, Angel?
No. Teams, you would say, wow, 103 yards. They were ranked 10 with 100, ranked 10th in passing. The reason why they had so many less yards throwing is because teams were running on them because they were susceptible to the run. They were second in yards allowed with 171 yards rushing per game, 126 at home and 176 on the road. So 126 at home and you're worst on the road. There's going to be a pattern here, guys, and I want you to listen to this pattern. Let's go back to 2024 last year. They were ranked 21st in the passing game, 102 at home passing, 102 yards passing a lot at home, 154 yards on the road. So again, more yards allowed on the road. Passing ranked 14th. Okay. On the road, sorry, that was a run game. Sorry. Run game was 129 per year, and they allowed 100 yards. They allowed 100 yards per game at home rushing, and on the road they allowed 154 yards on the road rushing. The passing ranked was 14th with 212. Home last year was 212 per game at home, and on the road they averaged 213 passing. So the reason why they didn't run they stopped the run so well last year, even though the offenses still average 100 yards on them, it's because teams decided to pass on them. So,
that's
and
a
by the
problem.
way, they
When
were
you're looking at like get 80, 90 more yards on the road
Exactly.
than you are at home. That's an
Exactly.
issue.
So this year they're ranked 17th on the rush, 116 per game, 102 at home. Now on the road was 111, but the ranking pass yards This year they were a little better. They're 167, ranked third in the passing game, 131 yards per game, and 198 on the road. So they were ranked 17th in the run with 116 per game, and 122 of that was averaged at home, 121. So they were worse on the road at home on with the run game. So and they were ranked third, but the problem is on the road they averaged 200 yards on a passing. So they're bad on the road. My question to you is this: if Jim Schwartz is so good, why can't his team play as good at home on the road than at home? What is the disconnect? And by the way, the Houston game, where they were good in 2023, they blew an egg when they went to Houston, and the offense just racked up points in Houston. Guys were left open deep. Tank Dell was open like 50 times
Big
on this
problem.
defense.
Yeah.
He allows big plays. This year, his big plays was
And I
down
think
a
he
little bit.
always will. The balance of that is you make negative plays, you get a lot of sacks, you get some balance, but it's a risky defense where you're gonna if it's a lot of every man follow his assignment. If a guy gets beat, you're in trouble, which we saw like when we had some injuries and a few guys weren't out there, we get roasted, especially at the cornerback position, because there's so much responsibility on a guy, and if he can't live up to it. So I feel like the way he runs a defense, you need to constantly be stocking high level defensive players to keep up with it.
Yeah.
And that's a tough world to live in when it's not like, well, we got a couple backups in, but we'll throw in some like really tricky formations and a few blitz packages to keep them on their toes. We don't do that. We don't do a lot of that. It's just here's your front four. You beat the front five one on one. Linebackers line up. Corners have a lot of one on one man time.
Yep.
Don't lose your guy. Like, don't be outmatched.
And when he is, that big play happens. A lot of it
Mhm.
happens in the middle of the field, which is a
It
lot
also is not
acceptable.
tricky, so it doesn't generate the turnovers like other plays. People always ask me, like, why don't the Browns, with as good as they are, why don't they get more turnovers? It's not like they don't get any, but they
So
don't trick quarterbacks, and that's how
so
you get a lot of turnovers. Is you trick the quarterback into thinking they're seeing one thing, and they're not. You have a linebacker pretend he's blitzing, then he backs into the flat. You have
yep.
safeties looking like they're shifting to the right, and then they drop back high, and they have a perfect line of where the quarterback's eyes are, and we don't do a lot of that, and that's
Yep.
fine. Our defense obviously is pretty darn good. We're still with Schwartz here. We're still always going to be dropping around the top 5. But to the points you just made, I think Cleveland has gotten to the point where they are so scared because we've seen bad defense that without Schwartz, there would be no success. But there are other guys who were as successful or more the last couple of years. It's not like he's a one in a million
Nope.
coordinator.
Yeah, and Sam says can't blame the road defense on Schwartz. Maybe certain players don't play well on the road. Well, whose fault is that? Is that the coach's fault or is that the player's fault? Coach
Yeah.
should be able to coach the player up. So if you're telling me that he can't get his
Figure out why
players to play
your
on the
job is
road
yeah.
as a defensive coordinator, how is he going to do that as a head coach?
Your job is to figure out what the problem is on the road, and then work with your position coaches to get that changed for the next
Yeah,
game.
he's also said Malik Collins going down hurt the run. I agree, but as a
It's true.
coach, it is your job to figure out, develop talent
Right.
to plug in. Not they
But
may not play to
that's
Malik
the point we
Collins'
just kind of
ability.
made though. Like, yeah, as long as he has all the elite talent out there, it looks good. But when we lost
100%
a
agree.
cornerback, we struggled mightily last year. When we lost a lineman this year, we struggled. Like the adjustment and the change was not there. And again, if we hired anybody and Jim Schwartz is the defense coordinator, I'm happy.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
These are
just like
just
that you're laying these out
yeah,
because
because
I
this
do
is
think some
just
people
what you
think
get.
he's the
They
GOAT.
forget.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they think that he's going to the Hall of Fame as defensive coordinator, and I don't think the NFL thinks that. I think he's pretty good. He's a good veteran coach, but I don't think he's so good that if you have the next Sean McVay standing at the door and you're like, "Well, we only want you if you have Jim Schwartz," you better reconsider that thought process Because if he says, if you believe a guy like Udinski, Shieldhouse, any of these guys they were looking at, if they believed any of them are as smart as all of the narratives and headlines that were out there, then you rethink how important a good defensive coordinator is when you have the Rams would be kicking themselves in the face if they didn't hire Sean McVay because he didn't like the defensive coordinator they had, even if the guy was good. Because Sean McVay is so much more important to a team than the coordinator. Just like I said, the quarterback is more important to a team than a receiver. If you
Yep.
walk a great quarterback into Miami and they're like, Tyreek Hill doesn't like him. Well, Tyreek Hill's been an excellent, excellent receiver, but you don't pass on a quarterback because a older receiver
You trade Tyreek Hill.
isn't the guy. Yeah, you
That's
move
what
on.
you do. You move on.
You figure
He's
it
a
out.
quarterback. Yeah. So the next question is, if Jim Schwartz is the head coach, which is it might trend that way, will he call
Hold on, you want me to
defensive
check?
plays?
Let me check the
Yeah,
let me
give me an
check the
update.
current.
So the question is, there a lot of people would assume that because Jim Schwartz is the head coach and defensive guru on this team, he's going to call plays. What do you think? Because
Not if
I
the
feel like I have an
description they
answer.
used if the description they used was, "We need a CEO who is running the program and
Yes.
making sure his coaches are doing what they're supposed to do," then I think if Jim Schwartz takes there's 2 ways to look at it. One, either he's gonna take over that job and he's not gonna call the plays anymore because he's taking that CEO role where his job is to hire and manage his coaches, work with them, make sure they're doing their jobs. Or he is gonna call the defense, and just like with Kevin, my complaint for years is if he's focused on that during the game, then he can't be
Okay.
focused on what his assistants are doing and what his player like, you can't the best coaches can do both, but you can't focus on everything. So again, he's a second time head coach, but he hasn't done it in a while, and he wasn't the
Yes.
most successful head coach in history the last time he did it. So
Wasn't.
if you're telling me he's going to sit there while the defense is out there and not be fully aware of what's happening on special teams, we're going to have these same questions of like, are these penalties or clock management or stuff because the head coach isn't able to focus on the whole big picture of the game because he's calling plays. So
Correct.
both of them
So
are problematic
so
to me.
I feel like I have an answer to this question because he used to be a coach in Detroit. And did you know he did not call plays when he was the coach in Detroit?
Okay. Okay.
So my answer would be, let's just apply what he did in Detroit as a head coach, copy and paste it here. So if he did not call plays in Detroit, he won't mind not calling plays here because
That's your
he's done
best
it
bet.
before.
That's your
So
best bet because
that's my
when
model
he was
that I'm going to go
Detroit,
off of.
he was a young guy, and I feel like that's when you're more likely to be like stubborn and be like, I'm
Yeah.
calling my defense.
So the guy
So
that called plays for him from 2009 to 2013 was Gunter Cunningham. He was also the assistant head coach / defensive coordinator. So keep that in mind. Yep.
Okay.
Keep that in mind. He probably hasn't coached since. Actually, he probably did. He probably had some minor roles. Now, he was the head coach, and his job was just to be a head coach. Wasn't calling plays. He went 29-51. The only winning season was 2011 when he was 10-6. Made the playoff once and lost in a wild card. 4 out of 5 seasons ended in a losing record, and the losing record was a collapse. He started 4-4 in 2012 and lost the final 8 games and finished 4-12.
You know what the most
So the-
important detail of this is? We can't bury the lead. At that time, his entire head coaching career, he had Megatron, who was
Yes,
a
that was
Hall
gonna
of
bring
Fame
that
wide
up too.
receiver,
Yep.
paired with Matt Stafford,
And
who out of the
uh,
gate was an absolute stud
monster.
at quarterback. He wasn't what he is today. Yeah, he wasn't polished,
He
but
was
out of the gate, everybody was like, nailed it.
something.
First pick of
Yeah.
the draft, he's a star.
Also, on defense, he had Sue.
Mhm.
So, I mean, he had talent.
And others. There were others on
And
that.
others.
I think
Yeah,
Arden
others,
was
yeah.
his name. Arden, I can't think of his name.
I
Arden
can't
Smith?
remember his name.
Yeah,
But,
he had a couple defensive stars. He had some offensive stars, and it can't be said enough. Like, he had one 10-win season. Kevin had an 11 and a 12-win season. So for me, I know Kevin's gone, move on. But the idea is if you were going to fire Kevin, you want to move on to somebody that you think has higher upside. And I know this is Schwartz's second time around, but having one winning season out of 5, one playoff run out of 5, and knowing that Kevin did this with like 13
Young
different
talent.
quarterbacks because of injuries, and meanwhile Schwartz spent most of his tenure with a legit, probably Hall of Fame,
Oh, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
borderline level quarterback at the helm and some offensive playmakers, it makes you really it
Yep.
makes it hard for me to get excited. I'm not saying it
Yes.
can't work. I'm just saying like it's hard to get amped up about firing a guy that was more younger and more successful than the guy you replace him with.
Yeah.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, so his last 2 seasons, in 2012, he started 4-4. The last 8 games he lost, so he finished 4-12. Then came back 2013, started 6-3, controlled the NFC North, and then lost 6 of the last 7 games, finished 7-9, and missed the playoffs entirely. The last 2 seasons, he had a 12-32 record, kind of like Kevin. But those 2 seasons together, Kevin 8 wins. He's a +4 wins on that. November or later, he was 12-32 as a whole in his career in Detroit. He was 12-32 in games in November or later, worse than any coach in the 5+ straight seasons with a team since Denver's Lou Saban. Anyway, it's old, 1967, so we weren't born.
Oh, I was gonna say.
Yeah, it was 1967. That's how long how long that record held until he took it over. So those are. I'm not saying that he can't come back, learn from it, and be better. But the history has shown that retread coaches that get promoted don't work out. Freddie
The
Kitchens.
difference is he's not a young retread like
He's older.
somebody like I talked about, like McDaniel. He's also not a retread who was pretty successful at his last place, because there are some retreads that work out, but most of them showed at least a fair amount of success the first time around. They don't have a 35% win percentage. They have like a 45 to 55%, and that's
Yeah.
not him.
Yeah, so I mean, and the history's shown that when you promote a guy within, it doesn't work out well. Just doesn't. Freddie Kitchens here, 1 year, 6-10. Gerard Mayo at the Patriots last year, 4-13. Antonio Pierce, a couple years ago at the Raiders, 4-13. Brian Schottenheimer last year with the Dallas Cowboys, he went 7-9-1 his first year. Brandon McAdoo with the Giants lasted a year and a half, went 13-15. Mike Merlarkey, sorry, Tennessee Titans, 2 years, even 18-14, the best record. And for some reason, they let him go for Vrabel. So that was an upgrade. Dennis Allen with the Saints, 2.5 years, 18-25. And Doug Marrone, Jacksonville Jaguars, 4 years, 22-42.
Can I just pile on with another negative? Because I feel like we're being so negative about him, and that's sad because he may be announced as our head coach soon. But just another negative is if he gets hired, he immediately, I think, is he the 5th oldest head coach in the league?
Yeah.
He'll be the 5th. He'll be maybe the 6th oldest head coach. Let me double check. And you might think like that's not a problem. Oh, so he'd be like the 6th oldest head coach in the league. You think that's not a problem, but the guys that are older than him, Andy Reid, stud, John Harbaugh, stud, Sean Payton, stud, Todd Bowles, doing things, and both Harbaughs actually. And then it comes to him, and it's like, okay, so a lot of like Andy Reid, Sean Payton, the Harbaughs, like you're just a very different thing to have him kind of come in as that 6th oldest head coach with the amount of experience and success he's had compared to the other old guys who are old because they've just been successful in football for so long. And that to me is like, McCarthy's also old. He's, as much as I hate to say it, his winning percentage is incredible. It's like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, so I
You're
mean,
just
I'm
talking
not
about it.
trying to be. Yeah, you say we're not trying to be negative. We're just trying to be. I'm just trying to be honest. The reason why I like a young guy is because I feel there's a higher upside. It's kind of like a Shador thing. There's some upside with Shador. I think there might be some upside, and the new shiny thing is more appealing. When I see the stats and when I see just what I know of him from the past, and then how is he going to be a head coach here? And then on top of that, you're going to give that defense that he was so good at to somebody else. Does that dilute his
Right.
value?
You take him away from what everybody knows him for best, and that bothers me to a degree. Like, I know he'll still be involved with the defense, but, like, he needs to be able to hand it off to another guy, though, and can he
Mhm.
do that again? And if they're struggling, does it take his focus away from the whole team to fix his defense? We're not doing what we did last year, now I gotta step in, and then, s you know, the team's culture suffers because he's not able to do the real job he's supposed to be doing.
And another thing
Same
is
thing
if
I
he
said about
brings
the offensive guys. The
yeah,
best offensive guy that can come in here, he needs to hire really good offensive guys because if he has to sit there and try to help Shador with his footwork, then it's taking him away from what he needs to do.
yeah, that's what you need, like a Udinski where Cohen has him helping develop quarterbacks while he's doing other things as a head
Yeah.
coach. Also,
Cohen, I'm
too,
sure, is not sitting
if
there with
you
Trevor Lawrence.
yeah, if you are a head coach that's defensive minded and you get an offensive young mind who does well, what is the trend? That young offensive mind that does well gets poached and becomes a head coach. Then now you're going to have to find another offensive guy. That's what the Bucks are going through. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker's going through his third, fourth
Well, the Lions
friggin'
kinda
offense
going through that
OC.
too a little
Yeah,
bit, right? They struggled
yeah.
on offense this year because they lost
What's Ben
their play
Johnson?
call. That's why I think maybe that's why I think it's great to have a good offensive mind, but he should be teaching,
Yep.
developing, bringing up guys in the system who can so when the OC moves on, you can promote your quarterbacks coach
Coach. Yeah.
and you always are the mind that stays in the building, and I do think that's super valuable as long as they don't overextend themselves and be like, "I'm gonna create the scheme, I'm gonna call the plays, I'm gonna do everything," as long as they're okay with being
Yeah,
like,
that's why a
I'm
lot
the
of people
offensive mind that will train these other guys to do what I need done.
that's why a lot of people like Sean McVay's tree because he does that very thing.
Right.
He just coaches, and all these other people are like, "You're the run pass coordinator. You do this," and he's learning through McVay and that stuff. So that's why
Mm.
people pick from trees. Even Kyle Shanahan, people pick from his tree because he develops young coaches
And
well.
that's one of the reasons that he was such a valuable head coach because you're like, okay, this will make hiring easier because we can hire somebody without a lot of experience. He'll make sure they get up to speed, or we can hire his own guys internally. And that is so helpful to be able to do.
James
So,
Frank brought up a bad memory for me. He says, "Remember the game we played them, Detroit Lions, and Stafford was hurt, and he still played the game and
Bill
killed
won the
us."
game.
He was playing with like a
He threw like
bad
a Hail
shoulder.
Mary on the last play of the game, and he, like, separated his shoulder, and because there was a pass interference penalty in the end zone, they got to move all the way to, like, the 1-yard line, and with no time left, they got to run one more play, even
Yep.
though the time was over, and with one arm, he was able to get the ball in the end zone for a touchdown. It was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah,
That was so
that's a bad memory.
devastating.
And we're
So
still
tough.
reliving those moments today. It's not like, "Oh, those are the good old days," you
Because
laugh it off,
Browns
like,
are
it still
tortured. Browns
happens.
fans are tortured. What do we do to deserve this many bad memories and, like, bad scenarios? It's so rough.
Sam said he'd rather have Mike McCarthy. I'll tell you that half of Pittsburgh doesn't like the fact that Mike McCarthy's there. Most of the fans that I have as Pittsburgh fans are like, "What the heck are we doing here?" Because it's everything opposite what Rooney usually does. Somebody within, defensive mind, young. He went with the older offensive coach. Can't hear you.
It's somebody younger who's been there, who they expect to be there for the next 10 years or more. This one, though, feels a little different, though, because it almost feels it's very hard to replace Tomlin.
Yeah.
But like I said, they got rid of defense, so a lot of teams are like, "Well, we'll go offense."
Offense,
And
yeah.
McCarthy, when we went over his numbers, I was shocked to see that even the fact that I don't love him, he has a very, very successful coaching record
He's played
over.
with 3 good Eric,
He
great,
has
2 good, 2
quarterbacks
great,
help.
and 1 good. Yeah,
That's what I keep saying to people though. Like people are like, "Oh, Stefanski didn't get it done." It's like, I wonder if he would have got
quarterback.
it done if he had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers
Yeah,
2 in a row.
somebody is
I'll bet he was pretty good.
yeah, and we're gonna find out. And by the way, I don't know if you listened to press conference. They're not saying anything about Cousins. It was all Michael.
Yeah, there's still a lot of chatter about that. I was surprised
Yeah.
to hear that they're talking about like where does he end up? I thought it was a lock. Michael Penix, I think, is very talented. If he can't stay on the field, Kevin's in the same position he was in now with
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the talent doesn't match the
Good.
quarterback.
I mean, just play him, and if you suck, then next year you got a high draft pick. You supposedly
I just
next
think
year's draft class is going to be huge with quarterbacks if they don't.
I would
go
say
back.
this, if Penix could stay healthy, I have a good feeling that he can be a decent NFL quarterback, but he's been in the NFL for 2 years. He's been injured twice with 2
Twice.
major injuries. He was injured a lot in college. Like, that's a tough that's
Yeah.
tough.
We're gonna be talking about Atlanta a lot. Not hopefully not. I'm following them because I
Good
mean
for me.
I
That's
like
where my gal is from,
yeah.
so I watch a
So
lot of them
you would
anyway.
definitely because your love is
I keep it up.
Atlanta. Me, my love, Kevin, is there, so we have something in
I have to be
common.
supported. Yeah, I gotta be
Yeah, to
supportive.
be supportive. Either way, everybody, that's it. That's all we have. Thanks for tuning in. Like, follow, subscribe, all our socials. Also, go to our beardedbrowns.com to get some of our merch. We got hoodies to keep warm
Uh-huh.
with this cold winter. We got hats, we got mugs, we got everything there. So go to www.beardedbrowns.com, and on the link there, it's a printable website. You just click the link and it'll direct you right to where all our merch is. And shout out to our other sponsors. I said Bearded Bassett Barbecue Sauce, Cleveland Ketchup, Doug White from Allstate Insurance, and Lego Heads
Head.
Barber Saloon in
Mhm.
Berea, Ohio. Thank you guys for sponsoring the show and being able to keep the StreamYard alive and paying our bill for the StreamYard, basically. So we appreciate that. And especially you guys are tuning in and commenting in the chat. We appreciate every bit of that. Continue to follow us on X. We broke 700. We're at 703 on YouTube. We're close to
Nice.
that 1,000, guys.
And we had a
Let's
lot of
get
good
there this
comments
year.
today. A lot of people chiming in.
I was hoping for a breaking news,
appreciate
but it
that.
didn't
I
work
know. I
out.
was gonna say the biggest what a downer podcast. I didn't get too up because I was waiting to like boom, here it comes. So I
I mean,
guess
I'm getting a
we'll
lot of like, it's almost
talk about
there,
it
but
next
not
week.
there yet. So I think
By
it
the
might
way,
be
one last check-in for Kalshi. Currently, Shieldhouse is number 1 at 45%.
Let's
Number
go.
2, currently, Todd Monken with 43%. Jim Schwartz has dropped down to 24% of the bids. And again, this is just the Kalshi online gambling
talking about
site.
that
So
It's good to follow stuff like that because it messes with your emotion. Like, oh no, the
Yeah.
guy wants
It re-
3 now. So it's over. He's never going to come. And 5 minutes later, you
Yeah.
check and he's number 1 again. So it messes with your emotions. So tune in live. We'll be live Saturday, 10 a.m. Sam, Logan, Gary Lee, and Mike will be talking, hopefully, the new coach. They'll be talking about the new head coach that we hire, whoever it is. I think it's going to be Shieldhouse. I just have a feeling. I'm hoping they trend that way.
You know what
But
they
watch
did?
it
They
be
wore you
Monken.
down. So I was very nervous about Shieldhouse because he's only had 2 years of NFL experience. At this point, I'm so worn down. I'm so tired. I'm so bored of people either not coming here to interview or canceling interviews. I'm so mixed in my own emotions about Schwartz that at this point, if they have Shieldhouse, I will have probably a pretty positive reaction because they've worn me down into being like, get your hopes up on all these guys. No. And so now where it's looking like it will be nobody, anybody with some kind of upside or excitement will probably have me all fired up because they wore me down to bring me back up probably.
Yeah, there was a I saw something on X too that Shieldhouse wants to bring in his own OC. He's the quarterback coach from the Rams, which
Do
I
it.
would be okay with. Do it.
Do it.
Bring the culture here, dog. Bring whatever scheme that you just throw. I know we don't have Stafford. I get that. We're going to need to get a guy that throws like that, but bring that culture development here, and I'll be all for it. I appreciate you guys. Again, Saturday, 10 a.m. Browns Morning Brew. Tune in. they would talk about whoever the Browns head coach is. Until next
And I
time.
won't be around for it.
Until next time, like always, go Browns.
Go Browns.